It's the place you go when you finish your show. We're your two best friends. Our names are Max and Ben. We're self-proclaimed television experts. It's Reality Alert. Oh, it's bonfire time because we are live with everybody's favorite Mark Walberg. It's Mark L. Walberg, host of Temptation Island.
I have to say before we start that the Reality Alert jingle is even more catchy than the old "You're Not Going to Tempt Me" jingle. So
yes.
Oh, thank you.
Well, that's high compliments.
that's saying a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
it is. We miss the old. You're not going to tempt me. By the way, we do miss.
Yeah, you know, Netflix in the rebranding lost the theme song, and I'm kind of cool with it. But I even get over the years I've gotten cameos from people where they're like, "Will you sing the theme song?"
And do you do the whisper and everything after?
I do whatever people ask me to do on Cameo. I'm a Cameo whore. Whatever you want, I'll do it.
You want the good rating, yeah.
Yeah, that it gets rated just soothes my codependent soul.
Your cameos are, "You're not going to tempt me into wishing you a happy birthday."
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm like, how can I not monetize that for, any other thing? You're not going to be tempted to go to any other store but Mattress Firm. It's like, I feel like there's some way I can monetize this. I don't know why Mattress Firm popped up.
I don't. Hey, get your bag, no matter what it is. If it's selling mattresses, then great.
We'll send that clip to Mattress Firm after this. We'll see if we can get you a sponsor.
It's like a spec commercial.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
This is going great, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
Mark, let's get into things. When did you know that this was going to be on Netflix? Was it after filming or before filming?
After filming the last USA season?
No, like this season of Temptation Island that we just watched. Did you know it was going to be on Netflix when you filmed it?
Oh, of course.
That's what we were not aware of. We didn't know that was filmed.
Let me explain how TV works a little bit.
Okay.
Someone has to pay for us to go shoot it.
Uh-huh.
So the way it went down is that we did five seasons on USA Network, and the last one aired over the summer, I guess, finished in the September. I'm not sure. And then around October or so, things were getting a little weird. And then about October or so, I heard that we had been canceled off of USA Network. So Merry Christmas. So we had a really great Christmas where my kids got lumps of coal. And
oh, God.
And we just sat in the dark.
Wow.
Plus, we're Jewish, so we couldn't celebrate anyway. So we just sat in the dark and tried to get my car smog inspected for driving Uber. So that was the plan. But then that was a joke. Then because I have a Subaru, it's always smog inspected. And then January 4th, I get this phone call that Netflix picked us up, which I thought was really smart because I don't think the show was ever not good. I think it was not particularly a great fit for USA specifically.
No, I agree.
Didn't have a whole lot of reality, if any. And there's no fault to NBC Universal or USA. It was a nice run, and they were great. And then Netflix picked it up, said, "I think we can make this terrific." And then the speed at which it became a thing lets you know how Netflix works. I mean, they were into casting almost immediately. I had a meeting with the executives where they were like, we're going to stay pretty true to the concept. And then they said, but we're going to bring back its original intent, which is that these singles are here to tempt them. Because in the years earlier in the seasons, it was getting more like these singles are here to find their love as well as, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And Netflix they do things on a bigger, better level. The casting was great. The show, I'm sure you saw, it looked amazing, in my opinion. So it's a different ride with Netflix. It's been terrific. And it's a little bit different when USA Network's average viewing is maybe 800,000 or so a night, where Netflix has 296 million subscribers. So the footprint's a little bit bigger.
Yeah, for us, it felt so similar. That's why we were wondering if it was just filmed to put on. Like, we liked how similar it was to
Well,
the
we like that they
version,
kept it
yeah.
close. To
Yeah,
the
I mean,
original
they could
product.
have like come back in and changed the format and changed the host, which would have broken my heart.
Thank God. We were worried, but
Yeah.
we were happy that when we read that you were back on. They
Yeah.
couldn't
We were worried they were going to get the other Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, I don't know if he was available.
Mhm.
Is he also Jewish? That's what I was wondering.
No, he's like hardcore Catholic.
No, I know. I'm kidding.
What did I bite into that immediately? I had to go to the Halo app and pray for forgiveness on that. Do you like that tie in there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's great. That's great.
We'll send that to them too. Yeah.
It was really interesting. They were a little, I wouldn't say cagey, but close to the vest as soon as they picked up the show, saying, you know, we picked it up. We're not sure what we want to do. We want to make sure it's our show now. So it wasn't like they didn't really want to, like little things like not having a theme song and stuff differentiated it from the seasons before. But I think that what they did that was smart was they didn't mess with the format. They enhanced the format in a couple areas, I thought, but they actually went back to the original format, added in some things that we hadn't done since the Fox days, putting bracelets on people in the, you know, when the singles put the bracelet on the person they're most attracted to, and just keeping it tempters and temptresses was a different language. I just thought they dressed it up. I thought the casting was superb. I thought that, you know, the production design was amazing. And I think a testament to my executive producer, David Friedman and David Goldberg and their staff, that the storytelling was great. So, you know, I just do my thing and they do that part, and it became a pretty good show.
It felt like it was such a good fit too, just because you guys are right there in the Netflix reality universe, along with shows like Too Hot to Handle, Perfect Match. I feel like a lot of these shows actually align pretty closely now in terms of content in ways that, like you said earlier, Temptation Island didn't really feel like it fit on USA Network.
Well, we were like the only reality show on USA, at least dating reality show. So it's great when you do well because you're an island and you create ratings, but there's not a lot of support. On Netflix, they have Love is Blind, Ultimatum, Perfect Match, and the list goes on. So what I feel like they do well is that you got a demo of reality, specifically dating reality audience that really digs this, right? And so you drop 13 episodes or 10 episodes over a couple weeks time of Love is Blind, and everybody's all psyched. And then when that's over, you still keep that audience on simmer with the next show. So now that we're gone, Perfect Match will probably drop, right? And so it just keeps that same audience with something to do, which is really smart. And, so for us, it was great. It was a real nice place to come home to. And I thought it was interesting for season 1 that they dropped all 10 episodes on the same day. It was entirely different from my experience because, I've been in TV forever. So, what that meant was no promos leading up to it, like a trailer and coming up on Netflix, but no press leading up to it. And then boom, on March 12th, it's out there. And by the weekend, everybody's seen all of it. And then drama, all kinds of podcasty drama. So that was interesting. Whereas on USA Network, I'd have to be doing live tweeting or press every week for, 13 weeks of shows. So this was a different trip. And it's been really enjoyable. I felt really supported. The people at Netflix are great. The audience has been really great. And yeah.
One of the things I'm excited for about you guys being a part of Netflix too is just that they seem to share like a similar casting pool too. Like you see a lot of people from shows getting recast onto other shows like Perfect Match, or
they're not opposed to that.
What's that?
They're apparently not opposed to that. There was a time in reality TV where if you're on one, you're not going to be on another. But personality is personality. And one of the things I like about Netflix is they kind of, in the way that they deal with things after the fact, like after the show's aired, in Reunion and other places, is that they kind of lift the curtain. Love is Blind is an experiment to see if love is truly blind, and these couples we want to believe actually fall in love and get married. And then in the Reunion, we hear sometimes that it wasn't that at all, right? And Netflix leans into that reality aspect of it, which I think is fantastic. And we meet people wherever we meet them, but if they're intriguing and they're still looking for love and they want to try it again, I don't see any problem with that at all. We see that on every other show, that once you're a Real Housewife, you're a celebrity of some sort, or once you're on Vanderpump, you're a celebrity of some sort. And if you show up on something else, we're watching that. And so, yeah, I think it's a good idea.
We'd love to see you consult Love is Blind couples, by the way. That's like a dream of ours.
I get that a lot. And I had joked, I think, even to the Netflix executives, I said, at this podcast now that I'm doing, that I will plug for all of your people to come like, subscribe, and comment. But I said, to me, it's like I watch Love is Blind as a fan. And then I'll see somebody, it'll crash and burn, or they're all at the show, or I'll see stuff going on. And I'm like, bless her heart, if I could just have her at a bonfire for like 10 minutes, maybe we could do some good here. So I said, wouldn't it be cool if there was like a portal that whenever anybody's voted off on any reality show, The Bachelor or whatever, they like, whoosh, and they're sitting at a bonfire with me. Let's talk about it. You didn't get a rose. How do you feel? And so,
yeah,
it's kind of like I'm kind of playing with that idea with regular folks now on my podcast, because I've had so many people reach out to me saying, will you give me advice? And I joked before we went live. At first, I questioned their judgment, asking a game show host for advice. But then I had to kind of lean into the fact that whatever I'm doing on the show, somebody's picking up and enjoying, like it's making a difference to some degree. So rather than sitting here and being falsely modest, I'm saying what's real for me, and people are receiving it in a way that makes a difference for them. So I've got all these people reaching out to me saying, I'd like your take on this, that, and the other. And finally I said, what I'm going to do, like every other week or so, is an episode of I Need a Bonfire. So people are writing in and sending videos saying, look, here's what's going on. And I just give a quick take on it. I'm not solving it. And I always say, look, your best bet is professional therapist, a family counselor. There's places to go to talk about this. But if you want my take, here it is. And it's worth exactly what you paid for it.
I like
sure.
that.
Zero. So
Love it.
Yeah. So anyway, that's been an interesting byproduct of this experience.
And we love that. Let's get into the show.
Okay.
So how much do you know about the couples before they arrive? Are you given like a little bit of a lookbook? How much do you know?
Usually a headshot and a couple paragraphs.
Okay. So basically what we know. Okay.
Yeah.
What were your first impressions of each of the couples? Let's go one by one. Grant and Ashley, this is after they've arrived and you've kind of met them at like the first sit down before they kind of go off to the villas.
Well, first of all, you see that. Like the first time I meet them is what you see on TV.
Yes.
Like there's no moment before we go out where I'm like, hey, let me just chat with you guys for a minute before we do this. There used to be. Actually, there never really was, but sometimes in between takes of setups, I'd have a chance where we're standing around and I'm go, can I just say some stuff? So, I mean, Grant and Ashley, I'm trying to remember what my first impression was. I thought they were both beautiful physically. It was like, wow, this is like quite an American couple.
That's what you said about us before the podcast started.
Right.
Yeah.
I say that all the time
Thank
about
you.
you guys.
Oh, okay.
Especially when I hear you sing your opening. Get you a man who can do both. I mean, that's like the whole Grant and Ashley. I mean, I got that there was love there and a chemistry, but I could sense right off the bat Ashley's uneasiness, and the dynamic left me a little unsettled, but not so much unsettled, but as I kind of knew where I can jump in here. Let's see how this unfolds. But, this is a couple that loves one another, but they got some issues.
Yes. Okay. Breon and Shantae.
Man, first of all, in that first, what do you call them, cabana scene where they're all sitting there and I goes, why are you here and all that. I like them very much. I mean, you can't not like Brian. He's just charming. And to get together, they seemed really happy and great.
A little
and
too charming,
like, our sex drives are different. And I really like threesomes. She's like, oh, yeah. And I was like, okay, so this is a problem. This is not the place to be if that's what you want, because you could get it. But my initial feeling about them remains the same. I like them both very much. Just happy to be around them. And even today, and we'll get into this drama later, I don't have as much contact with them, but I have real deep affection for both of them, and somewhat of an understanding of that dynamic, which nobody else can seem to get their head around, what's going on with Brian and Shantae on the show and since the show. But maybe I'm just more of a Pollyanna, but I look at Brian and I look at what he shares later on in the show about his past and his childhood and everything. And it doesn't condone behavior, but it gives me an understanding. So I've got a little love there, even with the actions we've seen. I've got love for him.
Well, do you think that, like, your understanding, not to jump ahead, but do you think that your understanding for Brian is maybe an understanding that Shantae has as well, and that's why she is able to kind of not tolerate, but have that empathy for him, so that's why she stays with him for so long?
When I had Brian and Shantae on my podcast recently, that's exactly what I said. I said, first of all, I apologize to Brian for not asking the question sooner in our experience to get to the source of what was going on, was that you had no father figure, you have no mother that loved you, you had nothing that did anything but say you need to take care of yourself and be non-emotional, right? And so I scratched the surface of that, which gave me insight to, I can see how you can have a threesome and not have any feelings about that sexual act and still say you love this girl over here. That compartmentalization made sense to me. So then I said to them, and when you went back together, it was so disturbing for us to watch. But then I said, if I know this much about Brian, I have to assume that Shantae knows everything. And while sex outside of a relationship is a deal breaker for most, the conversation we often have on the show is, which is worse, a physical dalliance or an emotional dalliance, giving your heart away or your body away. And I'd like to think that Shantae has, the reason they could be together was because she had some understanding of where he's come from, who he actually is outside of this experience. And that sexual bullshitty thing doesn't land the same for her as it does for us judging it on the outside. So I said that to them. I'm like, exactly what you said. I think that you know him more than we know him. You know his trauma and drama more than we know him. That informs your relationship. And you may have space for things that other people outside of your relationship can't imagine coming back from that you can. And I say that about everybody. And as a matter of fact, I just did an episode with Kay and some of the singles, and she made a very astute point. She says, look, you can say all you want, but the number of people have been cheated on and them gone back to the person that they've been cheated on because they love them, and then either works out or crashes and burns. This is not an unusual experience. So we sit and we judge them about what's going on. But if I put anybody else in that seat, you might get judged too, So yeah, I kind of rambled there, but I agree with what you're saying. 100%.
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to, I want to say this. I don't mean to sound judgmental, say, of Shantae. I want to say, did you ever get to this? Maybe we didn't see it, like trying to break down why, like, Shantae doesn't stand up for herself more, or why she puts up with kind of like, or why she's in denial, kind of like she's like, oh, I can't believe that he would do this to me, even though he's already cheated on her, kind of.
Yeah, say that empathy can also be viewed a little bit as codependency in a bit of a toxic way too.
I didn't get that. I didn't, to be honest with you, she was stoic. Now, later when she'd go back to her room, she'd break down and cry and be a wreck. But her demeanor with me at the bonfires was something I tried to open up for her is like why you can be vulnerable here. But there was this, I guess the best way for me to say is that this resignation to, look, you don't know how we operate. This is Brian, but that's not who he is at home. And, you know, she'd stand with herself. If he does this, then I'm out. She'd say that on the show. But there was this stoicism, this reserve of keeping her act together, this poise and demeanor that didn't allow me in enough to really figure out what's going on with Shantae. And quite frankly, Brianne was such a full boat that we kind of just focused there.
Yeah.
But it's a good point that you make. It's a good point that you make that I just was ineffective connecting with her at a level that had her break down or open up during a bonfire, but then later she would open up to other people in the house. And I don't have any, you know, I don't need it to be me. I just needed to, I need there to, I want there to be some opening for growth, which usually has some pain involved.
Yeah.
But complete is what I was afraid of with her, but I don't think that was the case at all. I don't think there was a complete denial. I just think that when she's on TV, she's sitting in front of other people, she holds herself in a regard that I'm not going to let my poise down here just for the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She also had that thing about wanting their kids to like watch it. And I think that wasn't just about like their kids. It was like, oh, their family is like, I think she kind of did.
They're both very religious. They're very Christian.
Yeah.
So I think that's, you know, it's a hard thing to sort of reconcile, but I kind of get it.
Had they seen the show before though? Had they seen it?
Which, by the way, is a phrase that comes up all the time. And
yeah.
Almost see me say it when I asked you guys have any rules at the beginning. And ironically, all three couples that had problems are like, yeah, our rules are no touching. And then Alexa and Lena are like, yeah, no rules, but they come out okay. And I kind of chuckle and say, look, I'm not laughing at the fact that you have rules. I'm just saying I've seen this over and over again. And this experience, you know, whatever you plan kind of goes out the window.
Right.
So, yeah, that.
Alexa and Leno, first impression.
You know, it's interesting to ask about first impressions because it's so long ago, it's hard for me to remember. But my first impression of them is that they were a little rockier than I thought they were, than they proved to be. That he had resentment towards how she kind of, you know, didn't support him and was still holding over her cheating on him early on in their relationship. And then she had this kind of resentment towards him, you know, that, and the way that got expressed, I was like, oh, they got some stuff they got to really work on here. And I didn't get the same vibe I got from Grant and Ashley, where I'm like, they obviously love one another. It's just not working. I kind of got that I did kind of get that the things that they were worried about and that they were complaining about weren't petty, but they were fixable. They weren't. Yeah, Robbie, my wife is she's doing what she does at the bonfire. She's giving me all the good stuff from off camera. But she said she was dealing with all that guilt. We learned that later. But from a first impression, I just knew that they were. It's easy to look at a couple when they're pointing fingers at each other for what's going on. And you know that it's not about the other person. You got to clean up your own side first. And so that gave me a way in with both of them. I was like, you know, I believe that you feeling second and misunderstood and taken advantage of, Leno, predates Alexa. It has to do with, you know, your soccer career going sideways when you got injured. It has to do with how your family treated you. And Alexa, the same is true with you. I think the guilt predates Leno. And when we started to go there, they both seemed to have a weight lifted off of them. And we talked about it recently on my podcast. I had them both on, and we talked about it, and then they said that really made a difference. You know, when you start working on yourself instead of the other person, get your eyes off of their page, you get them on your page, you got a chance.
Sure. I was curious too. Could you tell early on with a couple if someone might have intentions of proposing in a season? Can you tell if there's like, oh, that's the guy? If anyone's going to do it, it's him.
Not early, but as it, you know, maybe 2/3 of the way through, I'm like, I think Leno's
Mhm.
down. I don't think either one of these are straying. And I think, it makes sense that the next step is going to be something dramatic. So that wasn't a surprise to me, nor I think a huge surprise for the audience, but still, even if you know what's coming, it still makes you feel good. I'm happy
Sure.
with them. I like it.
Do you think Leno would have given into temptation if someone would have been willing?
You've been on Reddit, haven't you?
No, we saw it. Everybody saw it.
Everybody saw it.
He asked for a kiss.
This is the theory I've heard bantied about, that he actually tried to hook up and nobody really was interested. I got two feelings on that. One is I didn't see that, so I don't think that's true. Secondly, there are 12 girls and there are TV cameras, if I can be completely candid. So I find it hard to believe that no one's going to take the opportunity to have a storyline.
That's a good point.
Right? So I'm two sides of this. I'm a purist in that it's real. And I'm also aware it's a TV show. And I think they can both live in the same place. Two things can be true at the same time. I think people do things sometimes on the show because it's TV, but then it becomes emotional and real because there's no denying that. So do I think if Leno put it out there to one of the 12 girls or 5 of the 12 girls, that one of them wouldn't have said, I'm down for something? I find it hard to believe that all 12 girls would go, yeah, no. He's a handsome guy. His body is ridiculous. He's a sweet kid. So I don't see any logic that wouldn't have happened if he had truly, truly gone for it. Was he flirty? Maybe. Did people not vibe on him? Maybe. But I just don't think that's the case. I don't think this is this conspiracy that he just got rejected by 12 women and therefore I guess I'll get engaged. I don't know if I'm buying that.
I don't think it's that case. I think he wanted to get.
Oh, I see. You thought he just wanted to cheat a little bit and then come back and make it okay?
Yeah.
Maybe there was no rules.
I didn't get that vibe at all.
Of the cookie jar.
If only there were cameras in the after party after the season has wrapped, that would be more ideal.
We heard that's where stuff goes down.
In those 2 to 3 days before they fly back. That's the interesting part, I think.
It could be. It could be. That makes me think about back to the original on Fox we did in 2001. And it was such a scandalous, controversial show that the media was all over it while we were taping. So as people got voted off, singles got voted off, they put them at a different resort and didn't let them go home because they didn't want the press to say, oh, they've been voted off. And I worried that 9 months later, we were going to have an entire breed of Temptation Island babies because it was like an all-inclusive resort where these singles were coming off of this sexual experience and thrown together. So
babies that would one day watch their parents on the show.
Yeah, that I kind of like building your own audience, but yeah, that didn't feel right. So yeah, I do find it interesting that the days and weeks after the show wraps, before it airs, well, that's what the reunions point out. And even now what we're seeing in social media and everybody's TikToks and everything is now all the tea gets spilled. And you're like, holy shit, I had no idea that this was going on. I'm like, my wife and I, we're so removed from it. We make this leap of loving all of them, right? And then we're there buying it 100%. And then the show ends and a few months go by and I'm like, I can't believe what happened, who's with who and what went down. But then some of the stuff is really heartwarming. Like, Ashley and Logan and Danny are still like this throuple vibe of platonic, but I don't know. And they're happy. And the girls have become really close friends. And like Kay reached out to Taylor and Natalie reached out to Ashley. So like the girl code is intact, so it's all of that is, and I even say to them on the show sometimes, look, this is a TV show. You're going to make a decision at the end of it, whether you stay together or you won't. But relationship and lives continue. So this show never ends. Just the episodes do. You're going to go and live your life and it's going to change and change and change and change and change, which is what I wanted to say to Shantae at the bonfire had she asked me for advice. but I also didn't want to be proactive. I wanted her to make a choice. But I might have said something like, Shantae, listen, if your heart was to, before you saw him, if your heart was to say, I want to leave alone, then say it. And then in 2 weeks' time, if you want to have him back, have him back. But, it's not my place to, it's my place to ask questions, not my place to direct what goes on. So you got to give people room to do their thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
On the original Temptation Island, was there a couple kicked off for lying about having a kid or something? That's what. Yeah.
Like Tassie and Tahid, I think there were names.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I believe I can solve that.
What did you think about the new bonfire setup? I feel like the fire was pushed to the side a little bit.
The new bonfire setup was exactly the same place as the last season's bonfire.
Oh. Yeah, but I feel like it felt a little. Since season 4, it was changed. Okay.
Yeah. Season 5. This was season 6.
Yeah. Yes, we liked season's 4 setup the best. Okay.
All of them for me, every year it's the same thing. I sit down in blocking rehearsal, and I'm like, I'm too far away.
Yeah, that's what we felt. You were so far away. It felt like you were
same every
there
year.
were times where you literally had to get up and walk over.
Yeah, but that
then, the screen used to be smaller. Now there's 2 giant screens in between you. You felt like you were even farther away. The fire is all the way off to the side. I don't know.
To be honest with you, the fire was just as close as it always is, and I have the blisters to prove it. And I actually like this setup the most. It was a little bit far, but there's camera reasons for that.
Yeah.
But the setup itself, I actually liked the best of the ones we've had. So agree to disagree.
Well, we prefer you sitting right in the middle of all of them, in a group.
Holding hands.
Holding hands. Yeah.
It's all I can do not to do that. And in deference to what we're learning about how best to be, interacting with humans in general, I've had to check myself and say, are you comfortable with a hug, or, asking for consent as far as physical touch goes. But my general tendency is I just want to hold them, both the boys and the girls. I just want to hold them in my arms and tell them it's going to be all right. And, I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed. All those conversations.
Yeah.
We on every podcast talk about how we want you to hold us. So we understand.
Yeah. We get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have my consent. So.
Yay! So pretty quickly after the first bonfire, we see so at the first bonfire, Taylor sees Tyler dance with Kay and call him he calls her trouble, and then Taylor says that Tyler has bitch tendencies.
There's always one line that drops like a bomb.
Did you notice any bitch tendencies from Tyler?
First of all, if I say yes, then I'm giving...
That's the clinical term, right?
Phrase bitch tendencies. Because that opens a whole thing of what is it to... what that's derogatory to so many people.
Right.
Will I say that Tyler displayed what would be sensitive and soft and passive behavior? Yeah, I got that vibe a little bit.
That is a very nice way of putting it.
Very diplomatic.
Well done. That is just well done, Mark.
Because I don't think you're a bitch if you're sensitive.
I agree.
My wife just said some girls like that. So what does that tell you about me? Are you saying I have loving?
No, you don't have bitch tendencies, baby.
Thanks. Did you hear that?
Did your wife just say you don't have bitch tendencies?
She said you don't have bitch tendencies, baby. But, and I
That's
don't.
all the affirmation you need in a relationship.
I don't think. Yes, I don't think Tyler. I think Tyler is all man. He's a strong man. I think that Taylor's a strong woman, too. And I think what she needs in a partner is not what Tyler's dishing out. And I think what Tyler needs in a partner is support in a different way. He's trying to figure his life out, and maybe it comes off as soft or passive or submissive or whatever phrase or word we want to put on it. But that was a rough thing for him to hear. Also was the kind of phrase that gives guys a green light on Temptation Island.
Yeah.
So that we laugh about. I laugh about it now. It's not so funny, but you know what, the dynamic between the two houses is so crazy because, you know, the guys will act out and be crazy, and the girls will see it and cry, but not particularly act out because of it, although sometimes.
Mhm.
And the guys will hear one sentence and they're like, "Well, I gotta bang somebody," like it just off the rails instantly. So that's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, because we also have like basically the same thing where Ashley wonders why the universe gave her such a piece of shit man. Do you feel like that was uncalled for?
I stole a bite of my bagel.
Okay, Ben, do you think that was uncalled for?
I think it's completely uncalled for. No.
He's a piece
Look,
of gold.
nothing's uncalled for. Nothing's uncalled for. You came to the island because you have problems.
You could say bitch tendencies all you want on the island.
You got to say what your truth is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And sometimes if you say it to somebody else, it stings more. It's terrible, but you hear it come out of your mouth,
Mhm.
you know, and I'm so glad that I took a bite dressed sneaking. Now I'm going to die.
Don't joke.
And this
Take
is going to be
a
the
sip.
best episode you ever had.
Hold on, yeah. If Mark dies, we'll get great press. So either way this goes, I'm willing to accept it.
Mark L. Walberg dies talking about bitch tendencies on reality.
Denying that anyone has had bitch tendencies, please. At least let the memory of my time on this earth be positive. Look, I think that I think people say things on these shows that they've been harboring and probably have said before. It just lands differently when it's on TV and you're saying it around a pool next to a guy with 22 abs,
Yeah.
And then, which is often the case, those things they say, they may have said before, but the significant other didn't have a chance to hear it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So now they're hearing it, and it's teed up in a way to elicit a response. And immature life world, you might say, hold on, let me talk to her about this. And then say right then, man, you just said that just crushed me. Let's talk this out. But now you can't. And it just runs in your head over and over again.
Mhm.
I'm dying. One bite of butt bagel. The other Mark Wahlberg
okay?
away because he wouldn't be eating a bagel.
He'd be eating a honey-baked Easter ham. That's
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ironically, you would think that if I ate that would choke me.
Yep, it would.
This is going to be death by Western bagel. There are worse ways to go.
So Grant is the first person to fall into temptation on Temptation Island. Did it surprise you that he was the first to break?
Yeah, I think it was a little surprised because there were the words I said this too on the show. There was what he was saying, and then his actions didn't really add up.
Do you
So-
think
If you were a betting man, though, would you have put your money on him?
I refuse.
Who would you have put your money on?
I refuse to answer. I refuse to answer.
Do you think Grant's like a bullshitter? Like, what do you think's going on?
I would just say that if there was an odds line on this, his line would not. It'd be almost even money.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it
those
was
are pretty
like,
good odds.
It wasn't like this is outrageous.
Yeah, I think that's how I felt.
You know, he had a story about not being appreciated and not getting the love that he deserved from Ashley. And Ashley had a story of like, I can't trust him,
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't matter what the truth is. It matters what you think is true. And so for Grant, if he felt that way and then heard what Ashley said, that's a green light for him, or it seemed to be. But it still was very confusing when I talked to him afterwards, where he would say, I love her so much. And then he see a clip of her, and then he would say, she can never be for me what I want her to be. So it felt like he was deflecting quite a bit. And And the only way I could call them out is like, I hear you. I want to believe you. But the difference between what you say and what you do, you have to pay attention to. That's really all that matters.
We saw a lot of that in, post Temptation Island on social media. There was a lot of back and forth with Grant and Ashley as well.
Well,
just
that's a thing I wish I could coach them through as well. And when I do a reunion, which I didn't do this year, but when I do a reunion, but you even see it in the final bonfire, when they start pointing fingers at each other, Taylor and Tyler, and it's going kind of circular conversation, I like to stop. I like to let them do their thing. And then I stop them and say, okay, certainly you're entitled to blame the other person or call the other person out for action that hurt you. But I'd much rather you focus on what you've learned and what you're feeling and communicate from that place. I think that's a stronger place to communicate from. So what happens after the show is that you add a layer of everybody in the world having an opinion. And no matter what I say to these people after the show, many can't fight the temptation, branded, to feel like they need to throw receipts up and try to sway public opinion to, it's a right or wrong game. I'm right, she's wrong. I'm right, he's wrong. I can prove it. He texted here, he texted there. And that's just there's nothing healing about that. And I constantly say in my own family and life, if we have an upset and I can prove to you that I'm right and you're wrong, all that does is make sure that you are resentful of me and you're going to avenge this at some point. Because in a right and wrong game, somebody's got to lose. Somebody's going to be dominated. Somebody's going to be the dominator. I understand. I hear you. I acknowledge your truth. And not feeling the need to correct the record is a better way to communicate if you want a resolution. But unfortunately, and even more so now that we're on Netflix, the amount of comments and opinion you get is staggering. And I try not to read it. But for them, it's, I obviously am not in the drama, so my comments aren't the same. But theirs are really harsh and difficult. And so it's really hard for them not to go, nuh-uh, that's not how this is at all. You have to get my side of the story. And I just don't see that ever being a win. And it just ends up hurting everybody. So
you could end up in the drama one day, by the way.
Why would you do that? Why?
Vanessa Lachey has ended up in the drama, Mark. It could happen.
She had to send flowers publicly to contestants.
Yeah, Mark. You're on the up and up, Mark. It could happen.
I do most of my apologizing on camera when I fuck up. But yeah, I'm not. I guess I could fall into the trap of that, but especially my role again, even more so. I mean, first of all, whatever shit they gave Vanessa Lachey, lay off.
No, we're team
I
Vanessa
agree.
100%. It was such bullshit. It was so stupid.
I mean,
We
their
were
roles
100%
on
team
are
Lachey
different.
on that.
Their roles on that show are different. My role is kind of interesting because it's one of the few shows, if any show, where the host is also part of the content, which was never the intent, but it has become a thing. And so, but I really work very, very hard to meet them where they are, to not judge them during the show or after the show, and to be whatever I think however I can be supportive. So even when Brianna and Shantae are getting all this hate, and even when I call out Brianna for his behavior, I also say, look, you can't know what somebody's relationship is unless you're in it. You can't understand unless you know the whole story, which you will never know, viewers. And I love that you're watching and you have an opinion, but you can't indict at the level that you indict because you have to consider there are parts of the story you will never know, and it matters. So I get a little bit protective, even over what some people will call villains of a season. They're still people to me. They still matter to me. So
I noticed that Nick and Vanessa share like a similar temperament as hosts, especially on The Ultimatum specifically when they're dealing with couples rather than like starting out in the pods with people dating. Like Vanessa gets very emotional about this stuff. She gets almost parental with some of these couples, you know. So I do think it's you're in a good fit and an alignment with these other Netflix shows like that. Yeah.
I'm laughing at the comment that just popped up.
Somebody's
Yeah.
commented, Mark is so sexy. Okay,
And I'm wondering
Daddy
which one
Mark.
of you two logged on as Ashleen. But if you're a real person, thank you. That made my day. As I choked on a bagel like a 90-year-old Jewish man at a deli. Because that's
There's
hot.
nothing sexier than choking on a bagel.
I'm like an old Jewish grandpa with bitch tendencies. But there's someone for everybody.
Mark, what happened with Case? If you can tell us.
Oh
What
my
is
God,
I don't
yeah.
know.
story?
This is the question of the day.
I don't know. He requested to be eliminated, volunteered in real time, and then I don't know if he was having anxiety. I don't know. I can't speak to it. I have no idea.
That was
All I know
so
is
weird.
A few days
So
later,
what you knew was just what we saw. You
Yeah,
saw him
I get
come
the
back,
producer
and
said
the
to me-
producers didn't even
Yeah,
give
the-
you any info on that.
the producer said to me, "Look," and they were asking me this a little bit because the transition to Netflix was I always said that they've never driven this car, and I have been in this car for season after season. So they asked me, they say, is it weird or has this ever happened where a single has left or been eliminated or chose to be eliminated and then comes back to the show? I said, I can't recall if that has or hasn't happened, but you can do whatever you want. There's no rules at Temptation Island. The point is for the couples to get the answers they want. And if for whatever reason he wants to come back, if that feels like something you want to do, unless he's done something egregious that you're not welcome back. Case is a great guy. So I said, sure, just maybe this will provide me an opportunity to say something to Taylor that has been on my mind. And they're like, sure, you can do that. And that's when that whole scene went down, because Case had been interested in Taylor, but I wasn't really saying to Taylor that Case came back for her. But I was so moved by Taylor saying that nobody would want her and that if she would leave her, she would leave herself. If it were me, I would leave me too, she said. And I just broke my heart. So I kind of wanted to do whatever I can to say to Taylor, that narrative is old. You can change it right now. That doesn't have to be your future.
Why did that strike you so strongly out of things that people typically say on bonfires? Because we've never really seen you pull somebody aside on the show before.
You never seen it because they haven't given me the opportunity, but I would do it probably every day if I could.
Yes.
I wish I could do the bonfires and then sit with each one of them afterwards and go, you okay?
It really seemed to hit you at the bonfire too.
It did.
Though.
When I hear, first of all,
this?
I think being a woman is so much more difficult than we give it credit. We men give that credit. Okay. I think that if you're a woman in the world, not just America, my research says that 90% of the women I meet, single women I meet, married women I meet, have some story of abuse or harassment or something horrible based on their sexuality in their past that forms and has sway over their future relationships. So when I see a woman like Taylor, who, when she's watching her boyfriend act out, watches it sitting with a straight back and smiling, I see that smile as part of the armor of, you're not going to crush me like I've been crushed before. I won't allow that. And while that's noble and strong, I then had to push. And then when she says, I'm just broken, and I say, well, I know you feel broken, but I don't believe you're broken. I think you feel broken, but there's nothing broken about you. And then she's like, everybody leaves. It's fact. It's history. Everyone in my life who comes in that I love leaves. And if it were me, I would leave me too. No one should have to feel that way. And it just hit me in the feels. And I get hit by all of them a lot, but that was, I think it was the juxtaposition of her being the strongest alpha-ish vibe of a woman I've seen in a long time. And then to see so clearly what's behind that, I was moved. I can't explain it. I've had several times throughout the years where I've gotten up and walked over to where the girls are sitting because I'm so moved. I mean, Kristen and Julian, who are now married and happy several seasons ago, I was moved by her. There's several times. And I'm just glad I had a chance to have that conversation with her, whether it landed for her or not. I'll talk to her Thursday when she comes in my studio, but it was real for me. I was really hurting for her, and it was on my mind for the days after that bonfire.
Mark, so we have a similar thing on our podcast where, we feel more sensitive to the women's experience on reality TV because we cover so much of it, and we see the men act out and are generally, just to be blunt, more awful on
Especially on
reality
Love Is
TV, if we're going to sound judgmental here. When you're in experience of the bonfires, is it difficult for you not to be more judgmental of the guys because they're kind of acting out more physically, or they're the ones that seem to be causing more pain? You do such a good job of being, in the middle of things. It's really,
here's the thing,
non-bias.
That's a choice you make. So let me kind of see if I can. It's just putting these, I haven't thought about it until you said it. But the same thing I say about the generational woman's experience in the world of being the victim of toxic masculinity and having to steel themselves against that, having to go to a stoplight and not turn to the right and look because a friendly smile to a neighbor that means, oh, she wants to hook up. The same thing is true with what has been allowed for men. Okay? So what has been condoned as far as behavior that we've now realized is predatory behavior, rather than judging the behavior of these young men still trying to figure stuff out, I do what I can to coach them to understanding what toxic behavior is and what truly being in love and respectful is, because to no one's particular fault, there is a preconditioning that, I can overgeneralize, but if a young girl hooks up with her teacher, well, then we shame her to having to move to a different state. But if a young dude who hooks up with a teacher, we're like, dude, come on, you're the man, right? And I'm oversimplifying this side of what the generalization about how women are perceived and how they're a victim. But at the same time, these young men coming up are still correcting what they've been culturally programmed to believe is appropriate behavior. And a lot of that is deflecting. I do what I want, and gaslighting. Gaslighting is a thing that we invented, that men kind of invented, in my opinion. I'll probably catch a bunch of shit for this. So rather than judging the behavior as, boy, did you come out of pocket and look what you did and you're a bad boy, I kind of look at it as everybody learns the lessons when they learn them. You can't make them learn quicker. And more importantly, for men and women, they have to already learn what they need to transcend what is culturally ingrained, systemically ingrained in gender bias and gender behavior, to then start to have an enlightened, emotional, intelligent life of mutual respect and love.
Yeah.
It's a lot to do on a reality show, but that's my seat and what I'm thinking.
The inherent instincts might be to judge, but your focus on the show is growth. And shaming someone is not necessarily going to help them.
It's
grow.
the antithesis to growth.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, shaming from parents and others in society may be the root of all the behavior that we see acted out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? So the one thing I've learned in my life is that if you're committed, first of all, if you have an intention of something pure, intention means you'll do whatever it takes to get there, even if it means you can't judge or you can't insert your opinion of what's right and wrong. So if your intention is, I want everybody to leave the island in a better place, knowing more about themselves than when they got here, And if that's my only intention, then that gives you some insight of why I ask the questions I do and why I don't ask the ones or point the finger when I might.
Yeah. You leave that to the audience.
Right. And quite honestly, I've said this in meetings with executives about dating shows. I'm like, I can take any guy and any girl and put them on a couch with a camera and no microphone. You go into your singing lesson. You can take my car. You can take anything I own. We own. I'll be right here, probably still talking. Hour 4 of me pontificating everything I know about life.
We'll go all day.
There's no end to my bullshit. Yeah. Have a lovely lesson. I love you.
We'll make a good lesson.
We'll make sure he doesn't choke to death on any bagels.
I want to joke.
Good, thank you.
Okay. I forgot where we were.
You could put any girl in any guy.
Oh yeah, you could put any girl in. There she goes. Go.
Amazing.
Please
Amazing.
stay.
Any girl and any guy on
How it is on the island right now too, aren't we? Yeah.
You put any girl and any guy on a couch with a camera but no audio, and have viewers look at it, and they will immediately have an opinion of whether they should be together or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have opinion, and I try not to have an opinion. I try to have an ear,
Yes. Now,
Well,
do you think these couples can continue? Do you think some of these individuals can continue to grow on a show like Perfect Match, following their time on Temptation Island?
There's a cynic in me, and there's this wannabe philosopher in me. A cynic is, come on. The philosopher is, there's opportunity for growth everywhere.
Hey,
And
there you go.
more importantly, the biggest growth, like the growth, think of it like a flower, usually grows in a pot you didn't expect. In a place that not only isn't where you thought growth would happen, but is the antithesis of what you thought. Case in point, if you'd asked me if you were going to do a TV show where you get to really talk about philosophy and life and make a difference in people's lives and about interpersonal relationship and love and healthy behavior, what would that look like?
Battle.
It wouldn't have been Temptation Island. Doesn't look like any place where that kind of conversation would exist, much less thrive. So that's an example of a garden bed where you don't expect that to grow out of it. I didn't expect to be put there to have this conversation. I thought maybe I'd have a talk show, or maybe I would do a speaker circuit or some other place where that conversation lives, but it lives on this reality show to the point where when I'm playing golf and some guys ask me what I do for a living, I don't want to talk about it. I'm like, I work at TV. And they go, yeah, what do you do in TV? I say, well, I work in reality. Are you a cameraman? No, I'm on camera. I'm the host. I mean, I do everything I can to deflect. And they say, well, what's the show about? And I go, I can't really explain it to you. It's a dating show. It looks like porn and feels like Oprah.
It looks like porn. It feels like Oprah. I love it.
And that kind of works. I don't really feel that way, but my point is there's growth anywhere, and it's rarely where you think it's going to be.
Well, I have a follow-up question to that, Mark. If growth is everywhere, why wasn't there a camera in Breon's bathroom?
Maybe something needs to grow in the dark. I don't know. That's above my pay grade. That you wanted a camera says a lot about what you need to talk about.
Yes.
What else you got for me, guys?
I believe there was growth in that bathroom. I do.
Okay, well, if you need to wrap it up soon, let's get to. So, what do you think about Breon? When the red lights flash and Breon is reacting then to like, oh, this is how the women must have been feeling when the red light went off for them.
Oh no!
Like he
Was that him?
gains empathy. Yes, he starts to learn about how other people are feeling.
look, this goes again philosophically. You don't know what's going to transcend. You don't know what's going to cut through as a lesson. And, actually that was an encouraging moment for me, because when he did what he did and then Amaya calls him out, he seemed to have no remorse, no regret, no connection to his behavior and how that would affect Shantae. So when he kind of goes, oh shit, that's what the lights feel like to them, that was the first inkling of me going, well, there's hope. There's hope for this one, this young Padawan. He may be okay.
Speaking of Amaya, what did you think about having someone like her on the show that was really trying to hold Brianna accountable so much?
I think we need more.
Yeah.
I love the check and balance of that.
It's kind of refreshing.
Well, yeah, because there's plenty of, oh, your girlfriend sounds terrible, I would never do that, but we've seen it happen in seasons past that, these women have thoughts and feelings and integrity. And when a guy's being a dick, he's being a dick. And when somebody, it's happened before where people refuse to date on seasons past. I think it's exactly what it's supposed to be, in that the lessons are going to come living with these 12 singles. And sometimes you need somebody to check you. And when that happens, I think it's really refreshing and important. It's pretty great.
Yeah. Very cool moment. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we know you have to leave soon, so let's quickly go through the final bonfire and aftermath.
Okay.
Brianna and Shantae, what was the final bonfire experience for you? And was there anything we missed?
Unsettling. No. Much longer. When we tape them, it's much longer than what you see, of course.
Yes.
But the way it went down, the way it ended was unsettling. As she left with him, it felt like she didn't have a choice.
Yeah, at the end, you ask her if she's good, and she says yes, but it did not seem like she was good.
And I was really torn, because there was a time on seasons past where one of the girls said, yeah, I'll leave with you. And I knew it wasn't right. And I said, I'm sorry, you guys. I think you need to go back and talk about this some more. I don't feel complete on this. And maybe I should have done that here, but I think it crosses a line. I think these are adults. Shantae is not stupid. She's a smart woman. She's not even fragile. She's not that. I got the sense at some point in the conversation, now that I look back on it, that Shantae is like, look, we can talk about this, but we're not doing this on TV. So we'll leave together, and then we'll do this with class and the privacy of our own home. And I talked to them on my podcast, I think that's what they did.
I think a big moment in that scene was when Shantae went over to talk to the producer, just when she was so overwhelmed by the decision. How close do the producers get to some of those contestants on the show?
Very close, because they have to kind of be with them like all day, every day in the shadows. But I thought what you saw there was a really powerful moment as far as producing, especially when people assume that we're turning the screws on them. Producers are turning the screws and making them do things they don't want to do. And what you heard her say was not edited. I think she said something like, you got to go with what your gut tells you, we support you, go, do what you feel you need to do. She never says you need to leave him.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's indicative of our producing style on our show. I think they lead our contestants towards drama, as any producer would do, but not proactive in the drama. I don't
never
think
flat out saying, well, you should do this or that.
I don't think you're going up to a single going, go hit on him right now. That kind of thing. And maybe that happens, but I'd like to believe it doesn't. And I know the people that work here. And
that's where casting comes in, right? I mean, the singles will hit on people because they were cast to do that. Yeah.
Theoretically, that's a possibility. But I really felt like that was an important moment, actually, because it says one of two things. One, that Shantae has the ability and right to take a breath and figure this out before she makes a decision. And two, that she felt comfortable talking to the producer about it. And 3, that the producer advised her without telling her what to do. I thought that was really, really powerful. I'm proud of it.
Grant and Ashley. What was this like for you? Was this?
I kind of knew where they were both at.
Yeah, I mean, they even said like it's over. You know, they both knew it was over, and
right.
but it wasn't really.
It wasn't. but let's put that in a real world perspective, because how many times have people broken up because it's not working, but you still love one another? It's still So you try to figure it out, and you long for each other, and you woo each other out of desperation and heartache. And look, the seminal moments in all of our lives are when we had our heart broken. And until you have your heart broken, you can't really figure out how to be in love for real. So, there's no right or wrong in that. The bonfire went like I expected it to go. There'd be some finger pointing. There'd be some saying, I'm sorry. And it ended the way I thought it would end.
Tyler and Taylor.
That's the one I intervened a little bit. I let him go at it.
The double speak.
Pardon me?
You said you have your Walberg double speak that you were going to use in that one.
Not so much double speak, but to say, look, I let you have this conversation where each of you has blamed the other and beat each other up, which feels good. Now I'd like you to do this again, and let's reframe it and just start with I feel. This is what I've learned about me. Here's what I need in a relationship. Here's what I've learned. I think that's a stronger place. Can you try that? And then they tried that, and that was a little bit more satisfying for me. I don't know how much of that stayed in the show, but
yeah, just getting back to basics of.
I just, the same thing happens after the show. The whole I've got receipts vibe, the whole blame game makes you feel good when you're doing the blaming and gets you nowhere. You think there's going to be this ultimate judge saying, we've heard the whole story. You are right. He is wrong. Burn in hell, live in heaven. And it's a futile attempt. You got to live and let live, take the hit, let people believe whatever truth they're going to believe. You got to know your own. You can't correct the record.
Yeah. And Lino and Alexa got engaged, so that all worked out. Well, Mark.
See them. But, we can always say, there was no story there, blah, blah, blah. The truth is, when they came back together, they shared what they learned about themselves. And like I said at the beginning of this podcast, it was apparent to me that they had trouble that was causing them strain in their relationship. But I could hear right away that the trouble they're having had nothing to do with the other person. It has to do with something they're believing is true about themselves. And I think we can fix that really quick. And so when they came back and she's let go of the guilt and he's feeling like he's got his swagger back, I'm like, okay, let's go. And now they're just like, they came on my podcast dressed to like the cutest couple you've ever seen. So I'm like, I'm team Lino and Alexa. I want to be invited to the wedding. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with a happy Disney ending on Temptation Island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. Would you like to plug your podcast or anything else today?
I thought you'd never ask.
Yes.
So I have a podcast at bonfiretalkspodcast.com on all platforms, YouTube especially. And right now, I've tried a bunch of stuff, but right now I'm kind of talking about the show and other shows and hope to continue this kind of bonfire style talk, not so much about recapping, what we've seen, but what's behind what we've seen. So join me for that. And if you have issues you want to talk about, send me those things and we'll see if we get that on the podcast too. So that's it. That's my plug.
Amazing. Well, Mark, it is always a pleasure to have you on. We're so looking forward to the next season of Temptation Island. Do you have a confirmed renewal, by the way, or are we still waiting?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Okay, mysterious. All right, well, thanks again, Mark. It's the place you go when you finish your show. We're your two best friends. Our names are Max and Ben. We're self-proclaimed television experts. It's Reality Alert.
Oh shoot.